Why are we only talking about knee replacement? Are there any other options or not? Yes, absolutely. If you catch a patient before the joint is completely wrecked at an earlier age, normally, for example, in a standard medial compartment arthritis such as this, where the medial part of the knee is worn off, the lateral side is fairly well preserved. You can preserve the joint and do something like this. This is called as a realignment or a high tibial osteotomy, and essentially it changes the biomechanical axis of the lower limb back to normal, where the line joining the hip center to ankle center goes just outside the center of the knee joint. That way, the medial part of the knee is completely offloaded, and this is how it looks. Of course, you can also do a unicompartmental knee replacement. That's a brilliant surgery in a properly selected patient where the lateral compartment is completely preserved, and then you can just get away with changing the damaged part of the knee joint. A lot of people have been doing total knee replacement for a simple medial compartment arthritis, which is not ideal in my opinion, but it's a very good option for a rightly selected patient at the right age. So a standard thing is normally asked, when should a patient have a total knee replacement? We get a lot of patients who have arthritis in one knee, and they ask, can she have the second knee done at the same time as well? My standard reply is that you don't know how long your other knee is going to last. Doing something because you might need a knee replacement in future is a very wrongful notion. I usually give an example of people getting heart attacks. I tell them that yes, it's possible you're going to need an angioplasty. So why not get angioplasty done just now since you're getting admitted for a knee replacement? So you don't need a knee replacement just because you're having another knee done. So the standard answer from me or from anyone is end stage multi-compartment arthritis is a prerequisite for total knee replacement. TKR is generally earned by the patient and not given by the physician, as has been mentioned in a lot of our books, and it still holds true. The patient usually should have day-to-day activities which are painful, deformity and disability, rest pain, night pain, and inability to sleep. And most patients sit with their hand on the knee saying, anywhere I go, anything I do, I'm always aware of my knee problem. I need painkillers all the time. And when the X-ray looks like this, I think he or she is ready for a total knee replacement and nothing else is going to help them. Age is only a number. So you get young patients like this who's 35 with a rheumatoid arthritis with a completely wrecked knee, or someone who's 75 who's had a very happy, active, healthy life and now has got the knee wrecked. So severe OA is the prerequisite for doing a total knee replacement and not the age. In rheumatoid patients, we can do a TKR in the early age as well. I've done TKRs for 20s and 30s and THR in the same age for rheumatoid arthritis patient, as was shown by Dr. Surya Narayan as well. Secondary arthritis, however, it presents normally in 60s to 90s age group, and that's the time they need a total knee replacement. I will try and push the patients as much as possible into the 60s before I do a total knee replacement on them. Well, a big push has been given by the industry, some of the surgeons, about robotics and navigation. So it's a simple thing, whether you want to rely on artificial intelligence or you rely on your surgeon's hands and brains. For me, I use navigation. I don't do robotics, unfortunately. I use navigation only for extra-articular severe deformities where my standard landmarks for knee surgery don't work. Otherwise, you can get consistent good results with standard technique in most of the patients. So there is a lot of talk of robotics. The Makoplasty Robo is quite a useful tool, especially for partial joint replacements, and it works quite well. Same is with navigation. It just adds a few more minutes to your surgery and is indeed a good technique if someone wants to follow it. I just feel it's to be used only with caution in patients who have severe deformities. There's a lot of studies right from 2001 to 2010 which have not shown really significant improvement in Oxford knee score, the WOMAC or the KOOS score with either robotics or with navigation. So only in cases such as this, where there is significant malalignment due to badly managed or mal-united fracture, or someone with a very weird deformity, I generally stick to normal conventional techniques for my knee replacement as such. What about partial joint replacement? So partial joint replacement is a really good surgery for younger patients. So anyone with an isolated medial compartment arthritis who has got a lateral compartment really well preserved and the patellofemoral joint not that bad is very ideally suited for a partial joint replacement. And indeed, quite a few of the patients have uh, a, a fantastic result with a near normal Oxford knee score, and they're able to go back to the normal activities. I have dabbled with the ISOCAP and HemiCap when I was working in UK, but we haven't got it here, and the results are still 50-50. So we're not sure whether it's going to be a long run horse or it's going to be a short term thing. There are people who are doing bicompartmental. So I've done this as well. So patellofemoral replacement along with a medial compartment replacement. And there are some people doing this medial and lateral unicompartment knee replacement. I don't have any personal experience about this, but there are a lot of other options if you want to avoid total knee replacement. But in my opinion, rather than doing a bicompartmental knee replacement, it's better to just go for a standard total knee replacement, which gives you a more consistent and good result. A lot of people ask me about the activities allowed after TCAP. This photograph is taken from a website from Knee Society of States, which talks about what are the activities that are allowed and which are not allowed. So I think you can live a normal life. You can walk, you can climb stairs, you can walk on uneven grounds. Gentle lawn tennis or golf are also fine, but no contact sports of any time. So they've given a good list of things you can or cannot do. And I think this is a must for most patients to understand that a lot of patients want to start playing badminton or start doing jogging after a knee replacement. I think that's not ideal because you are going to wreck that joint much faster. Unlike a natural uh, knee joint, which is supported by normal ligaments and normal structures, there's no healing potential. Any damage is going to just progress and progress fast, and that's going to cause a lot of damage to the polyethylene insert, which corresponds to the articular cartilage in normal joint, and that will lead to a lot of problems. One more question that I'm always asked is the range of motion expected. Well, let me tell you, this is an advertisement gimmick. This is one of my photographs, and I don't show such photographs. This is a specially taken photograph for this talk. So if you have been managing without sitting cross-legged for last so many years, there's no need to sit cross-legged now after knee replacement. So the range of motion that is expected is dependent upon the pre-operative range of motion. That's the first goal. In obese individuals, even 90 to 100 degrees flexion is sufficient for their normal day-to-day activities. In any way, sitting cross-legged on the floor or squatting is not ideal because you are overloading the knees significantly when you get up from that position. So don't fall for it and don't worry too much about getting a deep flexion because there's a lot of studies which show the deep flexion or a high flexion knee replacement which gives 150 degrees of knee flexion, which is fantastic. If you are a young, fit, active individual with arthritic knee who has retained that much of range of motion, then you will get it irrespective of the surgery you get. Of course, you need a high flex implant nowadays, but most implants that you use allow about 150 degrees of knee flexion. So you can get knee range of motion. But this is slightly overstated advantage of a knee replacement. The functional range is what is more required, and it's always a game of expectations. Uh, you get these questions all the time. Can I sit cross-legged? Can I kneel? Can I jog? Can I run? My usual question to that is, have you done it before? Or are you able to do it now before the surgery? If they're not, then I tell them don't worry too much about it. You don't need to start doing running or jogging just now. You're not planning to do anything crazy. A knee replacement is the last operation you want done on your knee, which will last for good 20-25 years and will allow you to do your normal daily activities and not go crazy with your knee and such. So, when will someone get back to their normal life? So, it is completely variable and depends on various factors such as the preoperative knee function and prehabilitation. It's always a good idea to get the patients ready for a few weeks before surgery. Ask them to start cycling, leg presses, and basic quads strengthening exercises. Prepare them for surgery. People who are depressed or have psychological issues generally do not do very well after a knee replacement. So be careful when you select this patient. It also depends on the complexity of the surgery, the severity of the deformity, and the duration of surgery. Ultimately, it's a whole team from the surgical side and the post-op physiotherapy, occupational therapy, and post-op care that decide how and when a person is able to go back to normal activities. So for a well-prepared patient, I think a couple of weeks are all that is required to go back to independent walking, but they might need on and off analgesia based on the activities they do. A lot of patients are such as this. So this is just 5 days after surgery, bilateral knee replacements, and this was a video that he took to show off, saying how he is able to do most of the activities without any issues in 2 weeks, in 5 days time. So such patients are unfortunately rare, but you will get patients who surprise you and are able to do most of the activities very fast. What is the success rate for knee replacement? So generally speaking, 90 to 95% is the success rate for implant survival. What I'm trying to say is the knee will remain functional for 95% of patients in about 10 to 15 years time, but only 80 to 83% patients are generally very happy with the knee. The rest have some issues about the knee joint. Out of these 82%, 20-30 patients get 20-30% of patients get the best result, the so-called forgotten knee, which means they don't remember which knee was operated, and they're able to do most of the normal activities very easily. Like any other surgery, there is a 1% risk of infection, 1% risk of blood clot, 1% risk of stiffness and need of MUA, and early aseptic loosening, which happens in 1 to 2% of patients. So these are given for any surgery, especially for a knee replacement, and things can get quite disastrous with a knee replacement if someone has infection. The present implants have a lifespan of about 20 to 25 years based on the laboratory studies. The original install version 2 or PFC implants are lasting for 20 years plus now, and hopefully the newer implants with ceramic and everything else will last slightly longer. And the failure happens in younger patients and not older patients, and that's because of their increased demand on their knees. I think still the ideal age for a non-rheumatoid patient to do total knee replacement is 65 plus. Also, it depends on the use, overuse, or abuse of the knee joint. But it's not only the surgeon, the whole team which is responsible for getting the best possible result and a long functioning knee replacement in patients. Everything which is good also has bad side as well, and we have all seen bad infections following a knee replacement, where we have used all those barrage of tests that you have mentioned just now to find out the cause of the infection and confirm or refute infection as such. A knee replacement involves a lot of metalwork and foreign bodies inside, and it can cause a major significant damage to the patient's body. Most of the times I do a two-stage revision where I take everything out and change it with a antibiotic cement knee, which is looks like this, and then convert that to an implant such as this to correct the deformity and give a stable knee and correct the infection as well. Aseptic loosening is again a problem where there is debonding of the cement and the bone, and that usually causes failure of the implant. Again, infection needs to be ruled out, and two-stage revision works quite well. So once again, to summarize, we need to be sure that total knee replacement is not to be taken lightly. It's a brilliant surgery for most, but we need to exhaust all other options prior to doing TKR. So all conservative measures are to be utilized. You can try your osteotomies or even partials before going for total knee replacement, because it's a one-way street. You can't say that I've done a total knee replacement and I want my old knee back. You can't have that. So once a knee replacement is done, the severity and complexity keeps on worsening with more and more surgeries that a patient gets. And unfortunately, the results of a revision knee replacement are never as good as a primary joint replacement.